Before he disappeared from Hollywood spotlight, Brendan Fraser was more than a movie star. He was a symbol of innocence, adventure, and unshakable optimism. Millions knew him as the heroic explorer in The Mummy, the gentle giant in George of the Jungle, and the goofy, lovable face of 1990s cinema. But behind that disarming smile was a man quietly unraveling, betrayed by an industry he had once carried on his shoulders. There's a haunting story behind Fraser's sudden fall, one not written in tabloids, but whispered in studio corridors. At the peak of his fame, something happened that changed everything. Private encounter. A moment of humiliation and fear that left deep scars, both physical and emotional. What followed was a decade of silence, a slow disappearance from screens, and a painful transformation from Hollywood's golden boy into its forgotten ghost. For years, fans wondered, what happened to Brendan Fraser? Why did one of the most beloved actors of his generation vanish at the height of success? The truth is darker and sadder than most could imagine. A story of courage, trauma, and quiet resistance against an empire that didn't want to listen. But sometimes, silence speaks louder than fame. And when Fraser finally broke his silence, the world realized this wasn't just another comeback story. It was a reckoning. Tonight, we uncover the untold chapter of Brendan Fraser's life, the betrayal that nearly destroyed him, and the extraordinary strength it took to reclaim his voice. In the golden haze of late 1990s, Hollywood, Brendan Fraser was the kind of star that studios dreamed of creating. Charismatic, kind-hearted, and universally loved. He wasn't the typical brooding leading man. There was something disarmingly genuine about him, something that made audiences believe in goodness again. He emerged during a time when cinema still carried a sense of wonder. The world was moving into a new millennium. CGI was changing filmmaking forever, and blockbuster heroes were beginning to replace classic actors. But in that transition, Fraser was different. A bridge between old Hollywood's charm and the new era's spectacle. After small but memorable performances in Encino Man and School Ties, he became a household name with George of the Jungle, a film that could have easily been forgotten yet became iconic because of him. His comedic timing, warmth, and physical presence made the absurd believable. He was a living cartoon, but with the soul of a tragic hero. Then came The Mummy in 1999, the defining moment. It wasn't just a movie, it was lightning in a bottle. Audiences fell in love with Fraser's Rick O'Connell. The perfect mix of charm, bravery, and humanity. Hollywood had found its next adventure star. Studios lined up with offers. Franchises, romantic comedies, prestige dramas, Brendan Fraser could do it all. But behind the studio lights and red carpets, something darker was brewing. The same industry that celebrated him also pushed him to his limits. Years of dangerous stunts and on-set injuries left him in chronic pain. Yet, he smiled for cameras, joked with interviewers, and carried on. A man breaking silently under the weight of expectation. And then came the day that changed everything. A moment at a Hollywood luncheon that would mark the end of his golden era. A powerful figure, an unwanted touch, and a silence that echoed for years. The betrayal didn't happen on screen. It happened in plain sight, in the world that promised him everything. In the beginning, Brendan Fraser's rise felt like a fairy tale. He was the actor who never quite fit the mold, too humble to be arrogant, too sincere to play the Hollywood game. When others chased fame, he chased connection. On screen, that truth radiated from him. The Mummy franchise made him an icon, but it also made him a target of the machine. The endless cycle of fame, exploitation, and physical demand. During filming, he threw himself into every stunt. He leapt from horses, fought choreographed battles, and performed scenes that would leave most actors sidelined. By the time the third film wrapped, his body was broken, knees reconstructed, spine damaged, and vocal cords injured. But the audience never saw that pain. All they saw was Rick O'Connell, laughing in the face of danger. Off-screen, Fraser's personal life was unraveling quietly. His marriage to actress Afton Smith ended in a painful divorce. The tabloids painted him as distant, even strange, never showing that he was fighting through years of physical agony while trying to stay a present father. The roles began to fade. He wasn't young enough for the next generation of blockbusters, nor old enough for Hollywood's character parts. He was lost between eras, discarded by a system that didn't know what to do with authenticity once it stopped being profitable. And then came the silent implosion. In 2003, at a luncheon hosted by the Hollywood Foreign Press Association, Fraser claimed he was assaulted by one of his powerful members. The encounter left him shaken, ashamed, and alienated. He spoke of it only years later, saying, "I felt ill. I felt like a little kid. I felt like there was a ball in my throat. I thought I was going to cry." After that day, he noticed the calls stopped coming. Invitations vanished. His name, once a staple on studio shortlists, began to disappear. Was it coincidence? Or quiet punishment for refusing to play along? As the 2000s turned into a new decade, Hollywood forgot him. The man who once symbolized joy and adventure became a ghost, living with chronic pain, depression, and the shadow of an unspoken trauma. Yet beneath that silence, something was still burning. The same soul that had made audiences believe in good men hadn't died. It was only waiting to rise again. When Brendan Fraser finally spoke out in 2018, it wasn't a headline-grabbing scandal. It was a trembling confession. After years of silence, he revealed that the incident at the 2003 HFPA luncheon had left him traumatized and blacklisted. The man he accused, Philip Burke, denied wrongdoing, but the damage was already done. For Brendan, it wasn't just about one moment. It was about the system that looked away. "I felt like something had been taken away from me," he said quietly in his GQ interview. His voice cracked as he recalled the years that followed. The canceled calls, the missed opportunities, the fading relevance. "I blamed myself. I thought I was overreacting." Hollywood, in its golden hypocrisy, chose silence. At that time, the #MeToo movement hadn't yet shaken the industry. Victims were told to endure, to move on. Brendan did what many do. He disappeared. He retreated to his ranch, away from the cameras, away from the noise. His days were filled with surgeries, physical therapy, and isolation. The once vibrant hero of The Mummy became a recluse, haunted by pain that no one wanted to see. But time has a way of revealing the truth. When the world finally began to listen, to voices long ignored, people started looking back at Brendan's story differently. They saw not a faded star, but a survivor. His silence had been misunderstood as weakness, when in reality, it was endurance. Then, in 2022, something extraordinary happened. The Whale, a small, intimate film about a man struggling with his past, brought Brendan Fraser back to the screen. The performance was raw, devastating, and painfully real. It wasn't acting. It was confession. As the audience wept, Brendan himself cried on stage, a man who had been broken, standing again in the light. When he won the Academy Award, his voice shook. "I started in this business 30 years ago, and things didn't come easily to me. But I just want you to know, if you stay in there and you put one foot in front of the other, you'll get to where you need to go." It wasn't just a comeback. It was vindication. A man Hollywood tried to silence had become the symbol of resilience. Proof that truth, even when buried, eventually finds its way to the surface. There's something deeply symbolic about Brendan Fraser's story, not just for Hollywood, but for anyone who's ever been broken by the system they loved. His fall wasn't the result of scandal, addiction, or ego. It was something quieter, crueler, the invisible punishment of a man who refused to stay silent about what hurt him. In many ways, Fraser represents the conscience that Hollywood tries to bury. An industry that thrives on image often forgets the human being behind it, the bodies pushed beyond endurance, the smiles maintained under exhaustion, the silence demanded in the name of career. Survival. Brendan's story exposed that dark undercurrent. It showed how easily empathy disappears when power is threatened. When he vanished, the world moved on without him. There were no protests, no investigations, no apologies. But when he returned, heavier, slower, wiser. Audiences saw something real in his eyes. The same charm, but now laced with pain. The same warmth, but shadowed by memory. And they responded not with mockery, but with love. Because Brendan Fraser's story wasn't about fame anymore. It was about forgiveness of others and of himself. Legends and Secrets believes. His journey is one of the most powerful redemptions in modern cinema. It wasn't engineered by PR or nostalgia. It was earned through years of quiet perseverance. When he stepped onto that Oscar stage, he wasn't just thanking the Academy. He was reclaiming every lost year, every broken bone, every moment of humiliation that had once silenced him. It's easy to celebrate success when it's clean and glittering, but Brendan's triumph came from the wreckage. His story forces us to question what Hollywood really rewards. Is it talent or obedience? Is it courage or compliance? And perhaps the greatest truth of all is this. Even in an industry built on illusion, authenticity still wins hearts. Brendan Fraser reminded us that kindness, sincerity, and vulnerability are not weaknesses. They are, in fact, the most powerful weapons against cruelty. When Brendan Fraser stood on that stage, tears glistening under the lights, it wasn't just another Hollywood redemption arc. It was history healing itself. The applause that night wasn't for the whale alone. It was for every film that made us fall in love with him, every quiet year that tried to erase him, and every person who ever felt unseen. Time had not been kind to Brendan, yet somehow kindness became his answer to time. While others hardened under rejection, he softened. While others chased relevance, he rediscovered purpose. In an age obsessed with reinvention, he returned unchanged. Still humble, still grateful, still the same man who once laughed through pain so his audience could smile. His victory was more than cinematic. It was human. It reminded the world that behind every broken story, there can still be beauty. That healing doesn't always arrive with fanfare. Sometimes it comes quietly years later when you've almost stopped believing. Hollywood will move on as it always does. New stars will rise. New scandals will fill the headlines. But somewhere, deep in the collective memory of those who grew up watching him, Brendan Fraser will remain. Not as a symbol of tragedy, but as proof that even after betrayal, there is light. Because the truth about legends is that they don't fade. They just wait for the world to be ready to hear them again. And perhaps, in the end, that's all Brendan ever wanted, to be heard, to be seen, to be believed. Some stories are never revealed. But now you know.